Hello, 12th class. Let us proceed to our next class of story, The Sound Machine. In our previous meet, we have gone with the introduction of the story. Dear students, now go through the brief account given on the author Roald Dahl in your textbook. So, in our last meet, we have seen that Klausner, who is the protagonist of the story, is an amateur scientist who is fond of sounds. He seems to be a very crazy fellow. Klausner is obsessed with sounds. He tells his doctor friend Scott that I like sound. He has formed a theory about sound. He believes that there are sounds low pitched or high pitched that a human ear can't hear, though dogs do better than us. But with the help of a mechanical device, the sound vibrations or notes can be made audible to human ear. So let us see how Klausner is going with his invention of sound machine. Let us start the story. It was a warm summer evening and Klausner walked quickly through the front gate and around the side of the house and into the garden at the back. He went on down the garden until he came to a wooden shed, and he unlocked the door, went inside and closed the door behind him. Means he had at the back of his house he had made a wooden shed where he's going with his invention and the instrument sound machine. The interior of the shed was an unpainted room. Against one wall on the left there was a long wooden workbench, and on it among a littering of wires, means untidy way of wires and batteries and small sharp tools, there stood a black box about 3 feet long, the shape of a child's coffin. Means sound machine looked like a child's coffin. Klausner moved across the room to the box. The top of the box was open and he bent down and began to poke, means push in a direction, and peer inside it among a mass of different colored wires and silver tubes. He picked up a piece of paper that lay beside the box, studied it carefully, put it down, peered inside the box, and started running his fingers along the wires. Means according to the paper, instruction given in the paper, he is looking all the wires in the sound machine. Tugging gently, pulling hard at them to test the connections, that they are connected nicely or not. Glancing back at the paper, then into the box, then at the paper again, checking each wire. He did this for perhaps an hour. Means unless he was sure that everything is okay. The wires are connected nicely and all this. Then he put a hand around to the front of the box where there were 3 dials and he began to twiddle them. Twiddle them means turning them nervously, dials, as we have in the radios, watching at the same time the movement of the mechanism inside the box, that whether the dials are working nicely or not. The needles are working according to the movement of the dials. All the while he kept speaking softly to himself, that yes, it is okay or not. He is talking to himself, nodding his head, smiling sometimes, his hands always moving, the fingers moving swiftly, deftly, very skillfully inside the box, his mouth twisting into curious shapes when a thing was delicate or difficult to do. So according to the situation, he was making his face. Yes, yes. And now this one. Yes, yes. But is this right? Is it? Where is my diagram? Again looking at the paper. Again going with the machine. Ah, yes, of course. Yes, yes. That's right. And now good. Good. Yes, yes. Yes, yes. So his concentration was intense. His movements were quickly. There was an air of urgency about the way he worked. He looked like a professional scientist of a strong suppressed excitement. Suddenly he heard footsteps on the gravel path means the stony path outside, and he straightened and turned swiftly as the door opened and a tall man came in. It was a Scott, his friend. It was only Scott, the doctor. Well, 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 the doctor said. So this is where you hide yourself in the evenings. Hello, Scott, Klausner said. I happened to be passing, the doctor told him. So I dropped in to see how you were. There was no one in the house. So I came on down here that you may be here, I thought. How is the throat of yours been behaving? So he had come to ask about his throat, that he had problem, and he assured him. So he had come to find out whether he is okay or not. It's all right, it's fine, Klausner said. Now I am here, I might as well have a look at it. So doctor said, let me have a check. Let me check your throat. Please don't trouble. I am quite cured. I am fine, Klausner said. The doctor began to feel the tension in the room. Then he saw the tension in the room, everything in a scattered way. He looked at the black box on the bench. Then he looked at the man. You have got your hat on, he said. That why are you wearing your hat here inside the room also? Oh, have I? Oh, I am wearing the hat. Klausner reached up and removed the hat and put it on the bench. The doctor came up closer and bent down to look into the box. What is this? He said. Making a radio? No, just fooling around. It's got rather complicated looking innards. So doctor is asking, it is looking something complicated. Yes, Klausner seemed tense and distracted. What is it? The doctor asked. It's rather a frightening looking thing, isn't it? So he's making joke of him that it is looking very frightening thing. It's just an idea. So Klausner said, it's just an idea? Yes. It has to do with sound, that's all. So Klausner said, this is machine which is going to tell about the sounds, study of the sounds. Good heavens, man. Don't you get enough of that sort of thing all day in your work? I like sound. So it seems. The doctor went to the door, turned and said, well, I won't disturb you. Glad your throat's not worrying you anymore. Now I am happy that you are, you have no problem in your throat. But he kept just standing there looking at the box, intrigued. Means doctor was also finding quite interested about this box. What sort of box is this? What machine he had made? But the remarkable complexity of its inside. Curious to know what is this strange patient of his was to what's really for? He asked, you have made me inquisitive. So doctor is saying that you have made me little curious about this box. So Klausner looked down at the box, then at the doctor, and he reached up again and began gently to scratch the earlobe of his right ear. There was a pause. The doctor stood by the door, waiting, smiling. All right, Klausner said, I'll tell you if you are interested about this machine. There was another pause, and the doctor could see that Klausner was having trouble about how to explain about this machine. So he was shifting from one foot to the other, tugging at the lobe of his ear, looking at his feet, and then at last slowly he said, well, it's like this. The theory is very simple. Really, the human ear, you know that it can't hear everything. There are sounds that are so low-pitched or so high-pitched that it can't hear them. Means the human ear can't hear such high-pitched sounds or the very low-pitched sounds. It cannot be heard by the human ear. Yes, the doctor said, yes. Well, speaking very roughly, any note so high that it has more than 15,000 vibrations a second, we can't hear it. Dogs have better ear than us. You know, you can buy a whistle whose note is so high-pitched that you can't hear it at all. But a dog can hear it. Dog have this hearing capacity is very nice. Yes, I have seen one, the doctor said. Of course, you have, and up the scale higher than the note of that whistle, there is another note, a vibration if you like, but I prefer to think of it as a note. You can't hear that one either. And above that there is another and another rising right up the scale forever and ever and ever, an endless succession of notes. Means they are very high pitched. They are going on rising and rising and rising. An endless succession of notes. An infinity of notes. There is a note if only our ears could hear it. So high that it vibrates 1,000,000 times a second. It cannot be audible through our ear. And another 1,000,000 times as high as that. And on, higher and higher, as far as numbers go, which is infinity, eternity, beyond the stars. Means their vibrations is so high. So Klausner was becoming more animated, very lively every moment, and doctor is watching him. Now the author is describing about the physique of the Klausner. He was a small, frail man, nervous and twitchy, very anxious, with always moving hands. His large head inclined towards his left shoulder as though his neck were not quite strong enough to support it rigidly. His face was smooth and pale, almost white, and the pale grey eyes that blinked and peered from behind a pair of steel spectacles were bewildered, means confused, unfocused, remote. He was a frail, nervous, twitchy, very nervous little man, a moth of a man, dreamy and distracted. Suddenly fluttering and animated, and now the doctor, looking at that strange pale face and those pale grey eyes, felt that somehow there was about this little person a quality of distance, of immense, immeasurable distance, as though the mind were far away from where the body was. The doctor waited for him to go on. Klausner sighed and clasped his hands tightly together. So doctor is saying, yes, say what you are saying about the sounds. I believe, he said, speaking more slowly now, that there is a whole world of sound about us all the time that we cannot hear. Means we human beings are surrounded by different kinds of sounds. We cannot hear. It is possible that up there in those high-pitched, inaudible regions, there is a new exciting music being made with subtle harmonies and fierce grinding discords, a music so powerful that it would drive us mad if only our ears were tuned to hear the sound of it. If in the high-pitched, inaudible regions, if the music is played, sometimes means harmonious music, sometimes the combination of the different notes, and if our ears are tuned to hear it, means any man will become mad because of those sounds. So there may be anything. For all we know, there may. Yes, the doctor said, but it's not very probable, not all the time. Why not? Why not? Klausner pointed to a fly sitting on a small roll of copper wire on the workbench. So he pointed a fly sitting on the copper wire on the workbench. You see, that fly. What sort of noise is that fly making now? Can you hear? None that one can hear. But for all we know, the creature may be whistling like mad on a very high note, or barking, or croaking, or singing a song. It has got a mouth, hasn't it? It's got a throat. So we cannot hear, but it may be singing, it may be barking, it may be croaking, anything he may be doing this time. The doctor looked at the fly and he smiled. He was still standing by the door with his hand on the doorknob. Well, he said, so you are going to check up on that. Some time ago, Klausner said, I made a simple instrument that proved to me the existence of many odd inaudible sounds. So I have made an instrument which proved to me that there are many odd inaudible sounds. And often I have sat and watched the needle of my instrument recording the presence of sound vibrations in the air when I myself could hear nothing. And I have watched that the needle was moving according to the sound, which I could not hear. And those are the sounds I want to listen to. And that's why I made this sound machine, that I want to listen those sounds which are inaudible to us. I want to know where they come from and who or what is making them. This is my mission through this sound machine. And that machine on the table there, the doctor said, is that going to allow you to hear these noises? It may. Who knows? So far I have had no luck. Till now I have not been lucky. But I have made some changes in it. But in this sound machine I have made some changes. And tonight I am ready for another trial. This machine, he said, touching it with his hands, is designed to pick up sound vibrations that are too high-pitched for reception by the human ear and to convert them to a scale of audible tones. I tuned it in it almost like a radio. Means through this machine, I am going to convert the high-pitched or low-pitched sounds to the audible tone. How do you mean? It isn't complicated. See, I wish to listen to the squeak of a bat. That is fairly high-pitched sound, about 30,000 vibrations a second. The average human ear can't quite hear it. Now, if there were a bat flying around this room and I tune into 30,000 on my machine, I would hear the squeaking of that bat very clearly. I would even hear the correct note, F sharp or B flat or whatever it might be, but merely at a much lower pitch, don't you understand? So means he is saying that through this machine, I can adjust the vibration which can be audible to the human ear, high pitched or the low pitched. The doctor looked at the long black coffin box. And you are trying to try it tonight? Yes. Well, I wish you luck. He glanced at this watch. My goodness, he said, I must fly. Goodbye and thank you for telling me. I must call again sometime and find out what happened. The doctor went out and closed the door behind him. For a while longer, Klausner fussed about with the wires in the black box. Then he straightened up and in a soft, excited whisper said, Now we will try again. We will make it out into the garden this time, and then perhaps the reception will be better. Lift it now carefully. So he is very carefully taking it to the garden, the sound machine. Oh my God, it's heavy. He carried the box to the door, found that he could not open the door. Without putting it down, carried it back, put it on the bench, opened the door, and then carried it with some difficulty into the garden. He placed the box carefully on a small wooden table that stood on the lawn. He returned to the shed and fetched a pair of earphones. He plugged the wire connections from the earphones into the machine and put the earphones over his ears. The movements of his hands were quick and precise. He was excited and breathed loudly, and quickly through his mouth he kept on talking to himself with little words of comfort and encouragement. He is encouraging himself, as though he were afraid that the machine might not work and afraid also of might happen if it did. He stood there in the garden beside the wooden table, so pale, small and thin that he looked like an ancient, consumptive, bespectacled child. The sun had gone down. There was no wind, no sound at all. From where he stood, he could see over a low fence into the next garden, and there was a woman walking down the garden with a flower basket in her arm. He watched her for a while without thinking about her at all. Then he turned to the box on the table and pressed a switch on its front. He put his left hand on the volume control and his right hand on the knob that makes a needle across a large central dial, like the wavelength dial of a radio. And the dial was marked with many numbers in a series of bands starting at 15,000 and going up to the 1 lakh. And now he was bending forward over the machine. His head was cocked to one side, means at a vertical level, listening the attitude. Now he is ready with everything. His right hand was beginning to turn the knob. The needle was traveling slowly across the dial, so slowly that he could hardly see it move. And in the earphones he could hear a faint spasmodic crackling, means sharp sound. He could hear. Behind this crackling sound he could hear a distant humming tone, which was the noise of the machine itself. But that was all. He could also hear the humming tone, which may be of the machine only. As he listened, he became conscious of a curious sensation of feeling that his ears were stretching out away from his head, that each ear was connected to his head by a thin, stiff wire, like a tentacle, means like the thin part of the body, and that the wires were leathening, and then the ears were going up and up toward a secret and forbidden territory, a dangerous ultrasonic region, higher sound, where ears had never been before and had no right to be. So he is increasing he is adjusting during the dial in the same way, so that he could hear the high pitched sound in an audible tone. The little needle crept slowly across the dial, and suddenly he heard a shriek, a frightful piercing shriek, and he jumped and dropped his hands, catching hold of the edge of the table. He stared around him as if expecting to see the person who had shrieked. Means he heard a shrieking noise. There was no one in sight except the women in the garden next door. He could not understand from where the shriek is coming, because there is only one woman who is in the garden cutting yellow roses and putting them in a basket. Again it came, a throatless, inhuman shriek, sharp and short, very clear and cold. The note itself possessed a minor metallic quality that he had never heard before. Klausner looked around him, searching instinctively for the source of the noise, from where this noise is coming. The woman next door was the only living thing in the sight. He saw her reach down, take a rose stem in the fingers of one hand, and snip the stem with a pair of scissors. Again he heard the scream. It came at the exact moment when the rose stem was cut. At this point, the woman straightened up, put the scissors in the basket with the roses, and turned to walk away. Mrs. Saunders, Klausner shouted, his voice shrill with excitement. Oh, Mrs. Saunders. And looking around, the woman saw her neighbor standing on his lawn, a fantastic arm waving little person with a pair of earphones on his head, calling to her in a voice so high and loud that she became alarmed. She said, "What happened, this fellow? Cut another one, please cut another one quickly." She stood still, staring at him. "Why, Mr. Klausner? What is the matter?" "Please do as I ask," he said. "Cut just one more rose." Mrs. Saunders had always believed her neighbor to be a rather peculiar person, and now it seemed that he had gone completely crazy. So she was always thinking about him, that he's a crazy fellow. She wondered whether she should run into the house and fetch her husband. No, she thought, no, he is harmless. I will just humor him. "Certainly, Mr. Klausner, if you like," she said. She took the scissors from the basket and bent down and snipped another rose. Again, Klausner heard that frightful, throatless shriek in the earphones. As she cut, he heard the throatless shriek. Again, it came at the exact moment the rose stem was cut. He took off the earphones and ran to the fence that separated the two gardens. "All right," he said. "That's enough. No more. Please, no more. No more cutting." The woman stood there, a yellow rose in one hand, clippers in the other, looking at him. "I'm going to tell you something, Mrs. Saunders," he said. "Something that you won't believe." He put his hands on top of the fence and peered at her intently through his thick spectacles. "You have this evening cut a basket full of roses. You have with a sharp pair of scissors cut through the stems of living things. And each rose that you cut screamed in the most terrible way. Did you know that, Mrs. Saunders? That as you were cutting, means the stem, there was a screaming sound coming." "No," she said. "I certainly did not know that." "It happens to be true," he said. He was breathing rather rapidly, but he was trying to control his excitement. He was very happy that he could hear the painful noise of the cutting of the stem. "I heard them shrieking each time you cut one, and I heard the cry of pain, a very high-pitched sound, approximately 132,000 vibrations a second. You could not possibly have heard it yourself, but I heard it through this machine." "Did you really, Mr. Krosner?" She decided she would make a dash for the house in about 5 seconds. She was thinking that he has gone mad and she should rush back. "Oh, you might say," he went on, "that a bush has no nervous system to feel with, no throat to cry with. You would be right. It hasn't. Not like us, anyway. But how do you know, Mrs. Saunders?" And here he leaned far over the fence and spoke in a fierce whisper. "How do you know that a rose bush doesn't feel as much pain when someone cut its stem in two as you would feel if someone cut your wrist off with a garden shears? How do you know that? It is alive, isn't it? Means how will you come to know?" "Yes, Mr. Klausner. Oh, yes, and good night." So she said, "Yes, I will not come to know that they are feeling pain or not while cutting." Quickly she turned and ran up the garden to her house. Klausner went back to the table. He put on the earphones and stood for a while listening. He could still hear the faint crackling sound and the humming noise of the machine, but nothing more. He bent down and took hold of a small white daisy growing on the lawn. He took it between thumb and forefinger and slowly pulled it upward and sideways until the stem broke. From the moment that he started pulling to the moment when the stem broke, he distinctly heard in the earphones again a faint, high-pitched cry, curiously inanimate. He took another daisy and did it again. Again he pulled another daisy flower. Once more he heard the cry, but he wasn't so sure now that it expressed pain. But this time he was not sure that it is giving a painful sound. No, it was not pain. It was surprise. Or was it? It didn't really express any of the feelings. So this time he could not understand what type of feeling has come while plucking this daisy flower, known to a human being. It was just a cry, a neutral, stony cry, a single emotionless note expressing nothing. It had been the same with the roses. He had been wrong in calling in a cry of pain. Then he thinks, "Oh, I was wrong in saying that the rose was giving a painful painful sound. A flower probably didn't feel pain. It felt something else which we did not know about, something called toin or spurl or pinnaclement or anything. Pinnaclement means just as a reflecting sound, as you touch and it will reflect something. So it was like this only, or touching the flower and it was reflecting sound. So it was just like this. It was not, so he was, till now he was saying that the painful sound is coming, but now he's saying that, oh, it was just a reflection of touching and that nothing else. So today till here, children. Next meet we will continue our story. Thank you.